All right, good evening, everyone. We are here today at our regular City Council meeting for February 6, 2018. Can we get roll call, please?
Mayor Didball,
Here.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Buckland,
Here.
Councilmember Cardoza, and Councilmember Cleveland.
Here.
And Councilmember Cardoza is out sick. He caught that flu, so.
He likes to shake hands. That's dangerous right now.
Or not wash them.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
John.
Our prankster.
All right. We will have Councilmember Buckland lead us in the invocation tonight, and Councilmember Harris will lead us in the pledge.
If you'll bow your heads as I pray. Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all those that are gathered here tonight. Thank you for this day and the abundant blessings you provide each of us. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. I pray for the guidance in this meeting tonight. Please give us an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those that live and work in Yuba City and the surrounding communities. It's in your most blessed name that I pray. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a couple of presentations and proclamations tonight. We have the Community Service Award for Jill Detmer, Happy Landings Volunteer. So if we can have Jill come on up. Trivia, John Glenn brought Jill her first. We have stories. Jill began volunteering for the Yuba Sutter Chamber of Commerce. Never heard of those things. Dave's like, we have no idea. Oh, okay. Where she became involved in the Beale Air Force Base Happy Landings program. Happy Landings is a welcome program for newly arriving spouses to the Beale Air Force Base. Upon arriving at Beale, spouses are invited to come to the Airman and Family Readiness Center for a day of information and fun just for them. Each spouse goes home with a goodie bag full of items from the local community to encourage them to get out and explore their new home. For the last 10 years, Jill has become affectionately known as the Beale Fairy Godmother. Jill has spent countless hours calling and visiting local businesses, requesting donations for welcoming the new arriving spouses for their new home in Yuba Sutter. Over 150 local businesses, service clubs, and individuals have participated in donations to the Happy Landings. Jill drives to pick up donations, organizes everything into the goodie bags, and methodically files and stores all the donations so that nothing is ever wasted. Yes. Because of Jill's efforts over the last 10 years, over 1,000 military spouses have been welcomed to Beale through Happy. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know
Well,
that. Nobody's ever counted for me.
Well, now you know.
Okay.
Through the Happy Landings program, and another 1,000 Beale spouses have been treated to brunch and prizes at Happy Landings, home for the holidays. Not only have military spouses been welcomed and appreciated by their new community, local businesses, and have prospered by gaining new customers from Beale as a result of the Happy Landing program. Jill stated, "It never ceases to amaze me how much our community and merchants support the military families. When I spend my time asking if merchants would care to donate their merchandise, meals, and services and so on to these newcomers, it wasn't a case of if, but how much can I give and how many items." There, on the behalf of the City Council and the citizens of Yuba City, I would like to represent with the Yuba City Community Awards Service. Laura Nicholson here as well.
Oh, no, this is trouble.
This is trouble.
Jill,
Yes, ma'am.
we've come a long way
Yes, ma'am.
from the chamber and the Happy
This
Landings.
is your mother now. Be careful.
On that note, on behalf of Assemblyman Gallagher and Senator Nielsen, it is an honor, it is a privilege to thank you and congratulate you on your Community Service Award and to present you with this joint certificate of recognition and thanks.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
Just thank you to everyone, especially my bag stuffer here in the front row, which meant at Christmas time there was 160 bags, and guess who helped stuff them? So they're all just to me, all of them, all you guys, Jackie, everybody. Thank you very much. I've had a good time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And next, we have a proclamation, National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. And so can we get Vanessa Guzman? Hi. Good, how are you? Great. We have this for you. It's a proclamation from us. And I'm going to read this through as well. So, 1 in 3 adolescent girls in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, and verbal abuse from a dating partner, a figure that far exceeds victimization rates for other types of violence affecting youth. High school students who experience physical violence in the dating relationship are more likely to use drugs and alcohol, are at a greater risk of suicide, as much more likely to carry patterns of abuse into future relationships, engage in risky sexual behavior and unhealthy dieting behavior, experiencing disruption of normal development of self-esteem and body image. Only 33% of teens who are in an abusive relationship ever tell anyone about the abuse, and 81% of parents surveyed either believe teen dating violence is not an issue or admit that they don't know if it is one. The establishment of the Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month will benefit young people, their families, schools, and communities, to raise community awareness and to provide training for teachers, counselors, and school staff so that they may recognize when youth are exhibiting signs of dating violence. Now thereby be it proclaimed that I, Preet Didball, Mayor of City of Yuba City, and on behalf of the entire City Council, proclaim that February 2018 is Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, and urge all agencies and businesses to work toward ending teen dating violence, done this 6th day of February 2018. Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do.
Of course. I would like to thank you all on behalf of the clients and staff of Casa de Esperanza. We appreciate your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. And now we have a presentation from Darren Gale, on the Milken Institute Top 10 Cities Rankings. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Got a hot mic tonight. My name is Darren Gale. I'm your Economic Growth and Public Affairs Manager. And this evening, I have a privilege of presenting a little bit more information about the city, the Yuba City MSA, which includes the entire Yuba Sutter region, being ranked in the top 10 by the Milken Institute this past year. This just came out here a few weeks ago, and as a result of this, there were stories carried throughout the Sacramento news media, Channel 3, Channel 10, Channel 13, 31, and 40. Even found a newspaper in Southern California that talked about Yuba City being in the top 10. Chico's editorial, both of them were editorials in their newspapers, the Whittier newspaper down south and in Chico, both mentioned Yuba City in this effort. These are the top 10 communities of the top 10 best performing small cities across the nation. The numbers that you see up there, the first number, so Bend, Oregon, that's their MSA. They were ranked 1 this year, and then they were ranked number 1 last year, and then steady, meaning it was the same. As you go down St. George, they jumped 2 places, and as you get down to number 7, you will see that we actually jumped 38 spots. Washington below us jumped 68. In the report, they don't give you a lot of details. They don't provide us all the data to what goes behind what the Milken Institute does. But I can tell you there are many top 10 lists that we could buy into. We could buy into, you know, we're the best place to live, and some writer will write us, will write about our community. This is actually, they're taking true economic data that they have done for many, many years, and I was able to pull information all the way back to about 2003. But what they noticed is that Yuba City sees healthcare industry continuing to grow, helping the metro to become a top 10 performer. They also mentioned that tourism, manufacturing, and high-tech sectors were all reasons why some of these top 10 communities made the top 10. In the report, there was one mistake where they actually mentioned a casino in Colusa, where they really meant to mention the possible casino being built in Yuba County as a reason why there should be some continued improvements throughout the city of Yuba City. They mentioned the overall healthcare sector has almost 8,000 employees, which is obviously a huge sector for us. Before you is actually this. This is the entire rankings. So on the left-hand side are each of the areas, and on the top are the years. And the first line is the ranking. I'm going to switch to a different slide, and I break this down so hopefully people can see it a little bit easier. So again, starting in 2012, we were ranked 116th. We dropped down to 92. In 2013, 68, 26. Had a little bump last year where we bumped up to 45. And this year we were ranked number 7. They look at a variety of different issues. On this one, on the left-hand side, as you go below ranking, it shows 5-year job growth, 1-year job growth, 5-year wages and salary growth, and a 1-year wages and salary growth. And these are our actual rankings across the nation with small cities. This next one looks at the rest of them, which is one of the reasons why we saw such a big increase, which was growth in the high-tech industry. And one of the things that they look at is it actually looks at your percentage growth. So it doesn't compare us, let's say that we had to go against a city that was near San Jose, that obviously has a significant amount of high tech. If they grew 200 jobs and we grew 200 jobs, they don't look at that as the same. They see it as we doubled our high tech jobs and they saw a small percentage increase. One of the employers that we were able to specifically go back and identify in the high tech industry was Sierra Gold Nurseries. Sierra Gold had just a little under 300 employees less than 6 years ago, and today they have 500. And of those new 200 jobs, 75 of them are actually in a lab, and another 100 are supportive of the lab efforts. So those were all seen as high-tech jobs. Also, there were some jobs in ag manufacturing, in design that we believe that we can point directly to that demonstrated our increase. So, what does this mean? Number one, we need to tell our story. The Yuba Sutter region has ranked in the top 10. It is called the Yuba City MSA. Some people have kind of complained like, well, hey, why don't you guys call it the Yuba Sutter MSA? Well, I remember there was many years ago that there was this ranking that had Yuba City last. None of the other communities were like stepping up, on board saying, hey, we're part of that group. That's Yuba City. We're someone else. But when it says Yuba City MSA, it is the entire Yuba Sutter region, just like it was many years ago. I won't mention the ranking or what it was about because it doesn't matter. We are a top 10 ranked small community by the Milken Institute. And it's something we need to celebrate. And we're working with the other jurisdictions to figure out how best we can promote this, how best we can promote it internally, possibly on our emails, even having a little tagline that says, ranked top 10 by the Milken Institute. So it's very exciting. One of the questions that was asked, actually not one, every single person asked this question: what is your community doing to see a business increase? And I believe that this is a true statement, which is we get out of their way. The city council and many of the other elected bodies throughout the region does our best. Although we are a regulatory body, we do our best to allow businesses to do what they do best, to employ folks, to be entrepreneurs, and to grow their businesses. Another really exciting part about this whole study is we believe the growth came from existing businesses. The Economic Development Commission and the City Council has mentioned our goal. Our goal is to increase one job for every single business license that we have over a 5-year period. We have over 2,500 business licenses, and we want to see each one of those local businesses grow. As they grow, those people usually live here, the business owners live here, and they invest in our community events. So again, it's my pleasure to talk to you a little bit about this. If you have any additional questions, I can answer them this evening. And if you have any ideas throughout the year, please let me know so we can promote this and make sure that people understand that Yuba City is open for business and we want to see some new jobs come.
Thank you, Darren.
Through the mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. I've noticed, Darren, that we have some things in the pipeline that are actually have been voted on in a somewhat or approved by at least the Planning Commission. So saying that, what is our outlook for the next couple of years along the same lines that the Milken has looked at, since, we do know there are some pretty nice looking changes coming forward the next year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah. So as I look at their rankings, the one that I see that will probably that our numbers will increase will probably be in what they call their high-tech GDP location quotient over 1. We were ranked number 6. And we believe that occurred because of the jobs with Sierra Gold Nurseries. Right now, we don't know of a lot of high-tech businesses like Sierra Gold that's increasing significantly and doubling their employment. But we have some additional healthcare moving forward with Adventist coming to the community. We know that we'll see additional jobs there. They're stating that they're going to bring more services with the new drug and alcohol rehabilitation center. I believe it'll demonstrate next year that these numbers will continue to be good. I cannot project exactly where we'll be. Knock on wood, we'll continue to grow. Some of these numbers are 5 years, so it's not just what's happening next year. It's what's happened for the past 4 years. But we have seen growth in a number of businesses, and it's very exciting to see.
I can say personally that working towards getting the policies in place that businesses can best come to our community and expand, and then getting out of the way is definitely a goal that we have had at least the last 3 years. This council has been very tuned in on that, and I know that they seem to feel the same way that I do on this, is continue getting out of the way once we see everything moving forward and say, be successful, and helping them along.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Through the mayor. Darren, you ask a couple of the questions like, what can be done? Well, I think we need to advance and knock on the door of Bend and Redmond. They don't have anything that we don't currently have except for a view of Mount Bachelor and a couple other things, but they're high desert and it's cold there. So I think just the whole California approach will help us, really get up and start knocking on the door of that community. And if we can get in right behind them, I think we're in a great spot. But I really think that the innovative processes that go on here at Yuba City and within our business community will continue to help advance where we stand in different rankings, whether it be this one or others. And I really encourage our community to get behind those innovative processes that are out there and understand that change, some of the change is good, and it's good for business and makes our community, our entire community, whether it be Yuba City, Marysville, Sutter County, Yuba County, Live Oak, or Wheatland, it makes us all better at what we do. So I'm encouraged by this and certainly appreciative of the ranking because it does put some notoriety behind Yuba City and the good work our overall community does.
Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Buckland, I will tell you my competitive nature. I've looked at all the other ones that are ahead of us. I've looked at all of our surrounding regions. For example, Napa, Chico. We beat out Chico. We beat out Napa. And I've looked at past years' numbers and data to try to figure out what can we do to continue on as it relates to our city efforts on economic development. Are there things that we can do that other communities are doing to improve upon ourselves? Because you're right. I think we have a lot more to offer than many of those cities that are above us.
Perfect. Thank you. Any others? Okay. Thanks, Darren. All right. So next we have an item under our public hearing, general plan amendments, specific plan amendment, and a mitigated negative declaration to facilitate the development of a hotel located at the former Feather River Mills site. So we have a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Arnoldo Rodriguez, Development Services Director. The item before you this evening, it's a general plan amendment and an amendment to a specific plan, specifically the central area city-specific plan. And just for the benefit of both the council and the members of the audience, the city itself has a handful of master plans or community plans. The entire city, roughly 15 square miles, is located within the boundaries of the city's general plan. However, then we have a separate plan that gets just that. It's a little bit more specific and really it better outlines a vision for certain neighborhoods or certain pockets. Historically, specific plans were usually done to try to maintain a certain character of a neighborhood or to address certain either issues or certain vision of a particular neighborhood. So the central area specific plan was adopted in 1992. It's slightly smaller than 300 acres. And at the time, the city was struggling to identify a real vision for that area. So after a lot of community outreach, the city commissioned the study. It took about 1.5 years to 2 years to draft the plan. However, prior to those 2 years, there was a lot of public outreach done by the community, by the city, to make sure that whatever plan truly reflected the desires of both the community, the leaders at the time, and the property owners. So in general, the plan itself largely serves as a roadmap for future decision making. So the plan itself, here's a map. The northern boundary is largely Highway 20. To the south, it's just south of Franklin Road. To the east is the Feather River, and then to the west, it's somewhat it's a very circuitous map going to the west because it's just off of Plumas, and the further south you go, a little bit further to the west. So there's a couple of key identifiers, Highway 20 to the north, and then along the southern boundary is the are the fairgrounds. The site itself, it's right at the heart of the plan area. It's the former Feather River Mill site. So since the adoption of the Central City Specific Plan, a couple of major developments have occurred. So again, I'm really going back 25 years here. So one, we had the reconstruction of Pluma Street. We have the aquatic park. We have the new Fifth Street Bridge, which is under construction. We've had extensive public improvements made to Bridge Street. We've had a lot of private, public improvements along Plumas Boulevard. And then we also have the potential redevelopment of the Feather River Mill site, which is close to 6.5 acres. The item before you this evening is not for the entire 6.5 acres. Rather, it's only for the southernmost 1.5 acres. So back in November, I did a brief presentation to this council where we talked about taking a three-prong approach to updating the plan itself. Phase one is the item that's before the council tonight, which is to amend the southern portion of the Feather River Mill site to facilitate the development of a hotel. Phase two, which again is not before you this evening, however, it's going to be going to the Planning Commission and before this council in the immediate future, is to update the regulations pertaining to bars, nightclubs, and restaurants serving alcohol. And then phase three is largely a recalibration of the plan itself to make sure that we identify the vision for the area, and then also making sure that we have the proper zoning in place, the proper regulations, and then going back to what Darren just spoke about a few minutes ago, largely getting out of the way and letting private development do what it does best, which is truly to develop and grow businesses. So the site itself, again, it's roughly 1.5 acres, the southern tip of the Feather River Mill site. It's on the hard corner of Shasta and B Streets. This is a conceptual site plan of the hotel. So the site plan, again, it is going to be located along the southern boundary. So the reason why I say it's conceptual, because there's still some items that we're working through with the applicant, who's Mehmet Noyan. So a couple of key things about this site. This site was historically planned and zoned for industrial, which was reflective of what was on the property back then, going back to 1992. When the city designated that as an industrial use, they did so because they didn't want to make the uses non-conforming. Since those uses are no longer there, I think it's imperative to really take a look at the planning and the zoning to make sure that it's reflective of what can we want there. With the new construction of the bridge, we felt that it was an opportune time to really recalibrate our planning. And so the new bridge itself is going to come in along the western boundary, and it's going to provide great visibility. So because of that, quite frankly, we think that the site itself, it's better suited for commercial use versus industrial use, because again, we are going to have proper access. We're going to have a lot more passersby along that roadway. So again, this project itself, it's to amend the Central City Specific Plan, the general plan, and currently the site is already zoned for commercial. However, the Central City Specific Plan and the general plan don't designate it for commercial, they designate it for industrial. So really what we're trying to do is marry both the zoning and the planning. So the existing zoning, so this is a little confusing. The zoning today permits a hotel. However, the general plan and again, the Central City Specific Plan are industrial. And then also within this Central City Specific Plan, there's language about having storefront commercial. However, after taking a hard look at the project site itself, we felt that instead of having it storefront commercial, which is more appropriate along Pluma Street, that we would treat this site a little bit different, and it's more of a large regional center instead of a main street, because quite frankly, because traffic is going to be traveling at a slightly higher rate of speed and it's not very conducive for pedestrians because you're going to have 4 lanes of traffic right to the north, we felt that's a little more appropriate to have it designed to more reflective of a center versus a downtown, so not a downtown, but a true main street. So a couple of things that we were concerned about initially was traffic. We wanted to make sure that whatever traffic is generated from this site is not going to have a negative impact. So the city commissioned a traffic impact study. We reviewed 7 intersections, which staff selected along with our consultant. The only impact would be at the intersection of B and Boyd Street. And when I say impact, and that sounds like a strong word, however, it's nominal. It's half of 1%. So it's a very, very small number. However, we did identify it, and as part of the project, the applicant is going to have to pay their fair share, half of 1%, for the ultimate improvements of that intersection. So again, a very, very minor number. And then we also commissioned a action plan because we also understand that the property, again, it does have a long history. There's been a lot of uses on the property and it is contaminated. So the action plan identifies the different elements that are found on the property, and it also identifies the steps necessary to mitigate those. And so the overhead can simply provide just a synopsis in terms of what it's doing. And at the end of the day, the very positive news here is that none of the contaminants actually permeated into the groundwater. So that's key for us. So with that being said, the applicant is going to have to remove roughly 10,500 cubic yards of material, but that's not just from the 1.5 acres, rather that's the entire 6.5 acre site. The remediation action plan, if followed, is going to allow basically all uses. So in theory, if someone wanted to come in here and build homes, the site itself, because of its history, would not limit it. So really, and that's very good news. The action plan was reviewed and approved by the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, who's a responsible state agency, and the cost to remediate is roughly $1.5 million. Those costs will be borne by the applicant, not by the city. Also good news. So in terms of this project, staff did prepare a negative declaration. We did identify mitigation measures which were incorporated into the project. We sent it to the state clearinghouse. Also, we sent it for tribal consultation pursuant to CEQA. And again, we did incorporate mitigation measures pursuant to the action plan. And then again, the half of the 1% for traffic. So with that being said, staff recommends that the council this evening adopt the environmental assessment prepared for this project and also approve the general plan amendment, modifying it from industrial to commercial, and then also approving the specific plan amendment to the Central City specific plan. So with that being said, that concludes staff's presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Bring it to the council if there's any questions at this time before we open it to public. Nothing? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor. I did neglect to add one point. So yesterday, around midday, we did receive a notice from a surrounding property owner, and I believe he's probably here today. He said he was going to speak. And so just for the benefit of the council, the property owner owns this property, which has served as a tow yard for approximately 55 years. He's controlled it for 30. And since it's here this evening, I'll be quiet and I'll let him come up. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open to the public hearing on the general plan amendment, specific plan amendment and mitigation declaration to facilitate the development of the hotel located at the former Feather River Mills site is now open. If any of the members, we do have Dan who would like to speak, so.
Hi, I'm Dan Preston, and we've owned the tow yard for about 15 years, but it has been a tow yard. That area has been a tow yard for a good 30 years, at least, probably more like 40. Being used for towing and recoveries is what it's what it's been used for, and that's what we still do. We work for all the police agencies in the area. And just to be a good neighbor, I just wanted to bring up, I'm not against anything, any new projects, any new building development. I just wanted to bring up the fact that situated where we are, you can see us from the hotel, and that sometimes we have lights on, backup beepers, and we have LED lights on over there. I talked to a fellow named Mehmet today, the developer, and he said that all of that's been taken into consideration, and they realize that we're going to be making noise from time to time, that the fairgrounds is going to be making noise, probably more noise than we do. And so I feel that after I've talked to Mehmet, I realized that someone has gone and taken a look around the area before they built the hotel. So I just wanted to be a good neighbor and let everybody know that we make noise over there and have lights and stuff like that. And I didn't want to, anybody to be upset later that, well, we didn't realize that these guys were over there or something like that. But it doesn't happen all the time for us. But we welcome development in the area, and I really appreciate the straightforward approach that everybody here has for the development, and to look around and have a common sense sensitivity to what's already there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. We really appreciated your letter and your concerns, so we appreciate your participation in making sure all was covered. So, thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak? Nope. Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for any questions or any recommendations or approvals.
Through the mayor, just a couple points, and I appreciate the comments from Dan. Really, Dan's been one of those individuals that's been in our community for a long time, has made some investment there, has done a great job providing services to our community. But Dan, I just want to know what type of LED lights you're actually using over there, because as I drove around it, they're pretty bright. So I do appreciate that. So I just need to get whoever makes those and whatever model they are from you. There's ways to shield those, and I'm sure when you talk to Mehmet, there's going to be some landscaping and some other, things that will be able to screen a portion of your yard off. And I think that that's one of the things that's important about that location. In many hotels, they're set up so they're in a high use area adjacent to highways, freeways, things like that. Lighting doesn't necessarily affect a hotel user unless they come in somewhat impaired and forget to close the blackout curtains on a hotel. But that just means they're going to wake up early. But I think that there's a lot of things that we can do just to make sure that this works for you, works for the city, and it's just going to be a good neighbor process that's I think will be beneficial to that part of Yuba City. So. Yeah.
He also said that the class that they have is soundproof, more soundproof.
Yeah. So the comment off mic is that the windows themselves and Mehmet brings this up has insulation in the windows for sound protection, and that's an important feature that they're going to put on that hotel. He is aware of the noise that would be coming occasionally from over in the fairgrounds area. So. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or motion?
Move to approve staff's recommendation.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Project is approved. All right. Next, we have our public communication. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in the meeting. Public comment is taken on items listed on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on the items not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Comments that are controversial items may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of groups. So, do we have any written requests?
The only one was Dan Preston.
Okay, great. And anyone like to speak on anything? Okay. All right. We're going to move on to our consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time that council votes on the motion unless members of the city council, staff, or public request any item to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for an individual action.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. All right, moving right along. Okay, we got some general items. We have the financial report for the 6 months ending December 31st, 2017. Got Robin?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, I will be providing you with a high-level overview of the first 6 months of the financial activities for the general fund and both of the city's utility funds for fiscal year 17-18. The original fiscal year 17-18, let me get my years right, had budgeted expenditures of $41.3 million. To that, thus far into the fiscal year, we have added grant-funded appropriations of $533,000, prior year purchase order commitments of $555,000, and other items totaling $100,000. That brings currently budgeted expenditures to just over $42.5 million. Since revenues are on a cash basis and property tax revenues are not received until February and May of each fiscal year, and we prepaid our unfunded actuarial liability for fiscal year 17-18 to avoid the interest charges with CalPERS, our general fund has a net deficit as of December 31st. This is typical and is not alarming. It merely represents a cash flow issue, and with the city's pooled cash reserves, it does not represent a long-term problem. By the end of the fiscal year, the city will once again have a positive fund balance in the general fund. And just for comparison purposes, the unfunded liability portion of our CalPERS payment was $3,655,000 that we paid all up front. So we would only have owed half of that for the first half of the fiscal year. This is a summary of the general fund top 4 revenues, and the way these slides are set up, the yellow represents the percentage of the amount budgeted that's been received as of December 31st. The gray represents the percentage still remaining to be received by the city, with each line item being 100% to the far left. And you can see that there's not a whole lot of yellow up there. This is a typical pattern for the city at this time of year. Even though this looks kind of odd. Property taxes is just a sliver because it's the cleanup payment that we received in August of last year. We don't receive much in property taxes until the February payment, which we just got and deposited into the city's coffers, with the remainder coming in May. As I included in the written finance report to City Council, our property tax assessed values were up 4.79%. For the fiscal year, which exceeded our budget projection of 4%. So by the end of the fiscal year, that line will be all the way over. It will be entirely all yellow. And I provided City Council with some insight as to the details of the assessed valuation changes between commercial, industrial, residential, how many homes were still in Prop 8 status, et cetera, as part of the written report as well. Our sales tax, I'm providing you with a summary on the changes from the same quarter of the previous fiscal year on both a cash and an adjusted basis. It's important to see the differences. You can see that sales tax is still very, very volatile and difficult to project. It continues to go up and down and up and down and up and down. But at least looking at this, there's only 1 quarter of negative data, so that's really good news for us. The other 4 of our top 4 highest revenue sources, motel surcharge revenues exceeded the 25% expected because we've only received the first quarter as of December 31st because there's a delay in the reporting of those. Staff fully expects that by the end of the fiscal year, those also will meet budget expectations. Building permit revenues are at 54.7%. 54.7% of budget estimates, showing the seasonal uptick of development activity in the summer and fall months. Special police services are at 23.2% of the amount budgeted, and business licenses are only at 7.8%. That's pretty typical for business licenses because we send out the renewal notices in January of each year. So those are coming in and being processed by the finance staff currently. In summary, finance currently anticipates that the majority of just city general fund revenues will meet our expectations by the end of the fiscal year. As far as expenditures, the yellow again represents the amount spent to date through December 31st compared to the amounts budgeted. We're at 45.4% of salaries and benefits. I adjusted that amount downward to reflect a half of the prepayment coming out of it, since that's attributable in essence for CalPERS for the second 6 months of the fiscal year. So this is an adjusted amount that's shown here. I compared that to last year's number. We were at 46.6% last fiscal year, so clearly we will have budgetary savings again this year due to vacant positions at the end of the fiscal year. And any savings, though, would be strictly attributed to those vacant positions and wouldn't be any ongoing savings for us. Total general fund expenditures at the end of December were at 45% of the amount budgeted, and material supplies and services were at 44.9, so just under the 50% we would expect. In reviewing expenditures halfway through the fiscal year to make sure everything was in alignment with what we were expecting it to be, there was the one line item that I explained in my staff report that was in excess at the present time, and that's related to the city attorney's budget, but it's not the city attorney line item, it's our personnel budget. And we budgeted $64,500. We're already at $73,700 for the fiscal year. So as part of my staff report, I'm requesting a supplemental appropriation of $60,000 to that line item. Those overruns are due to ongoing costs associated with past and current labor relations and employment issues which continue to evolve and require the oversight of the city's employment attorneys. I have one more slide that contains citywide information, not just general fund, before I continue on to the water and wastewater funds. This is a summary of the city's pension liabilities as of June 30th. The actuarial reports came out in August, and I've included a breakdown of the safety plan and the miscellaneous plan with a total here. It shows that our unfunded liability for CalPERS for safety is $35.9 million. Which is an increase from last fiscal year. It was at $27.2 million last year, just to give you a comparison data point for that. Miscellaneous is at $37.4 million, and it's up from $30.6 million last year. So the total citywide unfunded pension liabilities are $73.3 million, and that can be offset by the balance in the Pension Stabilization Trust Fund of $2,471,000, bringing our net unfunded pension liabilities to about $70.8 million. This is the highest level summary overview of our water utility. It includes the operating fund, the capital fund data, debt service, and capital CIP project expenditures. Water fund revenues are currently at 58.6% of the budgeted amount. This is right in alignment with what we would expect given the fact that the summer months have higher billing amounts in July, August, and September. The revenues drop during the winter time and start to grow slightly in the springtime back upwards. We anticipate that through the end of the fiscal year, revenues should be right on target with what we've projected. Capital connection fee revenues are at 70% of the amount budgeted, while operating expenditures are only at 41.4% of the amount budgeted. They're less than budget expectations presently in two areas. Salaries and benefits, there's 4.25 full-time equivalent vacancies, and operation and maintenance accounts across the board throughout the entire budget. I wasn't able to pinpoint any specific line item. It's just generally speaking coming in a little bit lower than what was budgeted. And debt service to date only includes the December 1st interest payment. Principal and interest are both paid June 1st. This is a summary of the city's wastewater utility. Operating revenues, because they're not based upon consumption, are 50.1% of our amount budgeted, right on track with halfway through the fiscal year. Capital connection fee revenues are at 35.6% of the amount budgeted, while operating expenditures are at 45.7%. I looked at the savings there to see what line items and salary and benefits. There were 4.75 vacant positions within the wastewater utility, and specialized equipment, O&M, was less than what was projected and budgeted for the fiscal year. This is a summary of the city's debt coverage analysis. I show this to council at least twice a year. It's not letting me highlight the negative 0.51 up there of number of years of coverage available. The water fund did go deficit. We were anticipating that it would. It was just a matter of time because the amount of debt service that we pay from capital connection fees for our water fund are insufficient to cover what the annual cost is. I looked at it from a different perspective and added the section at the bottom here where it shows our required ratio is 1.2. So the cash amount that's required to give us the coverage of 1.2 is just under $1.8 million for the water fund and about $800,000 for the wastewater fund. So it shows you what the cash short in essence is by adding the negative balance to that. The shortage within the capital connection fee fund for water is $2,568,000. For wastewater, it's just a little over $2,000. And in the meantime, until development picks up and there's more connection fees collected by the city, the operating fund and all the other water fund sources will help float those debt service payments. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Robin. Bring it back to the council for any questions, any discussion? Or a motion to move?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may add something to that, just 3 very relevant topics from the recent city manager conference were homeless, cannabis, and the looming pension crisis, which sounds, I say the third one, it sounds kind of weighty. It is a weighty issue. It's going to be addressed by cities throughout and counties throughout California. Robin Bertagna, as our finance director, will be working on over the next coming months and year some fiscal contingency plans for our city with regard to how we are going to be addressing the increase in obligation for pension contributions in the coming years, which is just a heads up. We will go on. We're a very fiscally conservative city. So there will be many other cities who reach, I believe, a crisis point where I don't see that looming for us. But it is something that we'll be actively addressing and putting together options for your council to consider. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Back to the council. Yeah.
Robin, you mentioned earlier you are requesting $60,000. Can you go into the details of that, where it's going to be coming from and whatnot?
You bet.
Please.
It would be coming from the general fund's unallocated fund balance and going into the attorney departmental budget for the personnel attorney line item specifically, to handle the amount that we're already over budget in that line item, plus to pay for future personnel related attorney professional service fees.
All right, so the unallocated portion of the budget, so we're not taking away from another program or department to pay for
No,
this.
it's in essence taking it out of our general fund balance reserve, and we have sufficient funds there to cover that cost.
For this purpose? For times like this?
For unanticipated costs, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the supplemental appropriation of $60,000 to the account 1210-62730, professional services and personal attorney,
Okay, do
and
we
also
have a-
note and file.
Second.
Okay, so we have a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Okay. Next, we have the Senior Center Courtyard ADA Improvements Project, approval of plans and specifications. We got Ben.
Good evening, good evening, Mayor DeBall and members of the council. So the item I have before you is in regards to an ADA improvement project for the Senior Center Courtyard. As you know, the ADA, the Senior Center is located at the corner of Ainsley and Woodworth, just east of Gray Avenue. The building was built originally, the best I could tell, was late 50s, early 60s. And then it's been added on to over the years, recently with the solar panel project. And so with the layout, the parking lot is in the rear of the building, so on the north side. And so predominantly people park on the north side and they enter the building through the back, through the courtyard, which was never really established as an ADA path of travel, but due to convenience and the layout, that's where people come in. And so basically it's in a state that's not real nice. It has drainage issues, has ADA ramp issues with the way the ramps were built in the 50s and early 60s. They don't have the landings, the railings aren't right, the slopes aren't right. The space is it's just an odd shape, inefficient use, the way the landscaping and large kind of uneven surfaces that make it hard for that ADA path of travel where you have senior citizens with wheelchairs and walkers and different things that it's not ideal and it's not compliant. So over the last few months, staff has been working with a designer to come up with a plan for ADA improvements, and it basically rips out, and we got that center courtyard, and redo the ramps, redo the design where we get rid of the drainage issues, get rid of the slope issues, and maximize the use of that area. Because there's been a big push that area is not really efficient. It's not used as much as a lot of people want to have classes outside, and it's too hot in the summertime, or it's just with the way it's laid out, it's not usable. And so with this proposed plan, we're wanting to gut the middle and then put a shade structure. It's a 20 by 20 cloth shade structure, similar to what we have at the Gap by USA Shade, but it would be tall and we think would really help that area. Total project cost, you know, it's not cheap. I was a little surprised on how much it came back at it. So it's about $135,000 just for construction, and then when you add in potential contingencies and stuff, we're looking at a total project around $170,000. And when we really looked in the meat of it, is just there's a lot of work with demoing, you know, doing reconstruction is always expensive. So going in there, cutting it out, we're going to fix some water lines, the drainage lines, raise the sewer line up to grade, all those concrete railings, so they're adding up. And so we're looking at, we're looking at a budget, you know, coming back to you after bid around $135,000. And so we'll fine tune those cost estimates at award when we come back to you. And so we have budgeted in our CIP project, CIP budget, at 1220, we have ADA Public Facilities account that uses CDBG Community Development Block Grant funds that we feel that this is a qualifying expense to use for these ADA improvements, use those grant funding. So with that, we're proposing council adopt a resolution to approve the plans and specs and authorize us to bid the project. We're going to put it out to bid in February, March, come back in April with a detailed analysis and costs, and then hopefully get started with construction this summer and get it done. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ben. We were just chatting over here. Where's our Girl Scouts and Brad?
And we made sure, and we made sure we talked about that. We're not.
A lot cheaper.
They did a great job with the previous project, so. All right, do we have any questions for Ben or a motion?
My question, only thing is coming back in April may be a little difficult unless it's early April, because the second meeting will not be held, so.
So I want to, I appreciate that. And these are definitely tentative dates, so I appreciate your guys' your flexibility with that.
We want it to get done as quickly as possible so it can be in construction in the spring, summer.
So we're going to push for the early April, but you might see us in May.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay, do we have a motion? Approval?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Public Works mid-year capital acquisition requests.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm bringing before you tonight a request for 4 mid-year capital acquisitions, a polyblend polymer feed system, a used yard truck, a Hawk water information management system, and an asphalt grinder. So the polyblend polymer feed system, here's a picture of the 2 units at the wastewater treatment facility, are used to assist with solids dewatering at the wastewater treatment facility. So polymer is injected into the sludge material to help separate the solids from the liquid. And staff has tried to repair these existing units multiple times. We've put a lot of investment into them. What happens is they end up dosing incorrectly, which causes our belt press system to stop, which then creates a lot of issues for the operators because we need that belt press working on a continual basis. So what the belt press does is squeeze the liquid out of the solids, so the solids can then go to Recology to use as landfill on a daily basis, and then the water goes into the system to be disinfected and then discharged to the Feather River. So very, very important piece of equipment to be operating properly. So we are looking to purchase 2 polyblend polymer units. We're requesting a sole source purchase to G3 Engineering because they're the only distributor for the area. The cost is $48,128.44, and there are sufficient funds currently available in our budget for this under our major maintenance account. Moving on to the next item. So this is the next phase of the dewatering process. So these, what we did is we took a dump truck at the wastewater treatment facility, converted it with a hitch to be able to move the trailers. So the belt press is up on the 2nd floor of this building. The water is squeezed out of the solids, and then these solids are dumped into these trucks, which our operators move on a daily basis. It's about 1 truck per day. And so with that, the dump truck was never intended to move trailers of that size, and it's very difficult. So we're looking to do a sole source purchase for a used yard truck to Mid-Pacific Industries, which is the only major dealer of used yard trucks in our area. What we did is we went down there, looked at their stock, found one, brought it up in January to actually utilize it at the plant to make sure it could work through the building. And then our mechanic also inspected it. The cost is $55,877.25. Just for reference purposes, a new yard truck would be $120,000. And in the vehicle replacement fund, we currently have $115,000 available for the replacement of that dump truck that we're currently using. And so what we're requesting is that money be transferred to this used yard truck, and the remainder of the money go back to the wastewater fund. The next item is also related to the wastewater treatment facility. It's a Hawk water information management system. Currently at the facility, there's a lot of different systems in which we collect data, report data. And so what happens is on a monthly, a quarterly, and an annual basis, we report to the state. So we have a master spreadsheet, we have the lab information management system, we have the SCADA system, where we try to collect all of this information into these reports, reported to the state. Through that, you do have input error. And so what we're proposing with this system, the Hawk Water Information Management System collects all that data into one place, so then you're be able to output reports and then also have the operators have real-time data in terms of the operations of the plant. So what are the benefits of that? You reduce the human error of trying to collect all that data into one spot, which not only reduces staff time, it also reduces the state's time in having to review those reports, get back to us if they found a mistake. Also, it gives the operators the opportunity to see how the plant's operating in real time and make adjustments at that point in time. If something looks like it's not going to meet one of our permit requirements, they can make those adjustments to try to address it before it happens, versus right now, a lot of times you're waiting until you get the information afterwards to make the adjustments. The cost for the system is $47,440. So just as part of the used yard truck, we were putting money back into the wastewater fund. With this, we're requesting a supplemental appropriation from wastewater funds for this purchase. And then finally, I'm going to move away from wastewater and move to streets. The Street Maintenance Division currently uses older processes to saw cut the roadway to perform patch paving or repair utility cuts. So what are those old processes? It's a jackhammer. And so through that, what's become more standard in the industry is to use a skid steer with an asphalt grinder cold planer attached to do the grinding. So staff evaluated various manufacturers. They're proposing to purchase a Caterpillar 24-inch asphalt grinder cold planer. Our skid steer is Caterpillar, and so in terms of connection to the existing equipment, making sure that it's operating at the correct RPMs, we feel like it's best to move forward with the Caterpillar system. We will go out and get quotes for the equipment, so we're not requesting a sole source on this particular item. The budget amount is $25,000. In the vehicle replacement fund, we have $26,000 budgeted for a compressor that is no longer required. And so we're requesting authorization for the finance director to move the money for the compressor to the asphalt grinder. Some of the benefits of this particular piece of equipment, less time, less manpower. Also, when you're driving through the streets and you see those utility plates that are above ground and you hit them and they're a nuisance, with this we can grind an edge so you can set the utility plates so they're flush with the roadway. So it increases safety, increases the drivability of the roadway for our residents. And so we feel like this is an excellent piece of equipment to add to our equipment inventory. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Through the mayor.
Thank you, Diane. Yes.
So Diana, and you bring up an interesting point. For city operations, the asphalt grinder could be used to flush or drop to flush any type of steel plating that's put over trenching and things like that for ongoing. Is there any thought of moving or advancing requirements for contractors to have the same type of installation for plating, especially when some of that plating will sit currently. If anybody wants to drive past Councilmember Cleveland's house, they might wipe their car out at the intersection of Franklin and Clark with the elevated plating at that location. And there's others. I'm not picking on PG&E. They do a great job, and what they're doing is a benefit to our community. But there's been a number of those as repairs go on.
Right.
So is there a thought of maybe advancing that requirement for
Yes, so not only for encroachment permits, so those are contractors that come in and want to work within the city right-of-way on projects that are outside of the city. We can require that, and then also for city projects, we can request that the contractor do that as well. So when I say city projects, I'm talking about projects that we put out to bid, hire contractors to construct the improvements.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, through the mayor. I did not ask him to make that statement about the area, but it is true. They're doing, wow, the work they're doing out there right now. Good stuff, getting the gas out of the road and in areas and all new systems and stuff is great. Would that grinder also be able to be utilized to lower some of the over time increased speed bumps on different roads where they push up and create humps and things of that nature? Would that be able to be utilized for that at all?
It really wouldn't be intended for that type of use. There are other grinders for that type of use where it's a defined linear heave, where it's much smaller in size. With this being a 24-inch, you're going to go in and you're going to grind a 24-inch swath of the roadway. So, but we have other equipment that can address that.
Although I don't really want them to remove them on B Street because that is natural speed bumps to keep people slowed down from doing 40 in a 25. So I think that's actually a pretty good thing because people do try to speed and they do get rattled complaining, but what are you doing 40 in a 25 around a school zone? That is definitely something in the future, though we do have some roads that do need some grinding that I'm going to start reporting because there's some areas that really actually do need. So, thank you.
Great.
Real quick, if I may.
Yeah.
Just a couple words of appreciation, I'm sorry, but the fact, from what I understand, polymers are a big deal in the wastewater treatment world.
Huge deal.
Yeah, and so, you mentioned the fact that your folks over there, I wish some of them were here, have taken the time to try to repair that and troubleshoot it and do whatever they can before we get to this point of spending several thousands of taxpayer dollars. And I want you to know, I want them to know that I appreciate that, or we appreciate that. Also, the fact that they did not jump right to a brand new truck, and they're willing to, be conservative and look for a used one and save us half. So, for whatever that's worth, we appreciate that.
I'll pass that on.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Great. And I just, as far as the management software, I'm glad to see that we're looking at ways to improve our own processes to make it easier and get rid of human error, or try to avoid it as much as possible. So I think those type of things to look at, the new stuff that's coming in that can help and benefit and reduce the manpower that goes behind it. So it's a savings in that sense too. So thank you for looking at that. All right. With that being said, do we have any additional or motion?
I'll move to approve staff's recommendation, and in light of saving 5 minutes, I won't read it all, but it'll be item A, B, and C, all items that have already been discussed openly in public.
I'll
Do we
second
have a
that.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Got it. Okay. All right, next we have the purchase of the self-contained breathing apparatus, masks, air cylinders, and related charging and maintenance equipment.
Good evening, Mayor Didball, members of the City Council. I notice we're last on the agenda. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's always a challenge to follow the Finance Director and the Public Works Director talking about liquids and solids, but I'll try and do my best. So,
Putting you to the test.
I noticed I didn't mention Mr. Gale's presentation. We'll leave that for another day, so. Okay. So, I'm here tonight to talk about self-contained breathing apparatus and what that all means for us here. So with me tonight, I have Ajender Gill, Bill Fuller, and Jaswant Singh, who are going to help us with the presentation because they're much better at it than I am. So I'll be very brief and cover a couple things, and I'll let them take the presentation and a little demonstration from there. So what is an SCBA for our public here? It consists of an air cylinder, a face mask, a regulator, and a pack. SCBA, and another thing you may be familiar with, is like scuba gear. Scuba gear is used to be able to breathe underwater. Well, our SCBA, or self-contained breathing apparatus, are made to be able to breathe in atmospheres that are not good for us to breathe in. We often refer to that as IDLH, which is immediate dangerous to life and health. So anytime we get an atmosphere that is not tenable, we have to have the good equipment to make sure that we have that safety equipment so we can breathe and be able to do our job. Our SCBA goes hand in hand with the rest of what we call our PPE ensemble, which is our personal protective equipment, which is our turnouts and our helmets and our goggles and our goggles and our boots. So between our PPE and our SCBAs, as you can see, we like to use acronyms in the fire service. That's what protects us. That's what allows us to go into dealing with hazardous materials. That's what allows us to go in and deal with fires and allows us to go in those atmospheres that are very dangerous. So replacement of SCBAs. Because SCBAs deal with firefighter safety, there are very, very strict laws on what we can and can't do with our SCBAs. NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, which provides guidelines, recommends that we replace, or requires that we replace our cylinders every 15 years. Those are the tanks on the back. We also have to follow OSHA respiratory requirements in order to maintain our breathing apparatus. So basically every 15 years, and we're not unique, it's typical for fire departments across the U.S. and any other industry that uses SCBAs, that they have to at least replace their cylinders, if not their entire units, every 15 years. Our last purchase, we were very successful to get it on an Assistance to Firefighter grant. We were able to purchase Scott breathing apparatus about 15 years ago, and we've been using those Scott breathing apparatus, and they've worked very well for us. Originally, the goal this year was to also put on an AFG grant. unfortunately, the timelines did not line up. We actually are going to start losing a majority of our cylinders by April 13th. So we have to have our new stuff purchased, placed in here for service and in training, train our personnel, and have them on the engines prior to April 13th, April 8th, 13th, or April 15th, around that time. So that was, and that's a DOT requirement. So DOT also governs us as far as transporting hazardous materials, and compressed air, believe it or not, is considered hazardous material. So we cannot use those cylinders or transport them in our vehicles after that date, and that's one of the driving factors. So I was going to come to you. The good and the bad of this is, unfortunately, we have to come to you and ask for funding through the general fund instead of going through the grant. But the AFG grant did come out, and we were able to. I was probably going to come to you sometime next fiscal year and talk about radios, because we need to replace our radios, our portable radios, our engine radios, and our base stations and our stations, which is about $360,000. So we were able to take advantage and kind of swap it. So I won't be coming to you hopefully next year. Hopefully we'll be successful for radios. We put in for that grant and we're waiting for that. But I am coming to you tonight. We'll be talking about asking for funding for the SCBAs. The original estimates, this is one thing that worked out really well for us. The original estimates, they're very, very expensive with all the equipment that comes along with it. About $650,000 was our original estimate or range that we came up with to replace all the SCBAs and all the parts and pieces and accessories and charging units and everything that goes along with it. That was our original estimate, and it was a pretty legitimate estimate, and that was a concern of ours. As many of you know, I serve on CAL FIRE incident management team, and so when we were on the Cascade Fire down there, I started talking to some of my colleagues, because there's a lot of chiefs down there, and I said, hey, I'm running into this problem with SCBAs. Has anybody been going out to bid for them? Has anyone been doing anything? And I have a lot of CAL FIRE chiefs that are on that team. So one of them came to me and said, we just got a bid from the state of California, got a bid through Scott to purchase all of the SCBAs in the state of California. And here's the bid package, boom. And I looked at that and I saw the pricing, and the pricing was phenomenal. It was excellent, much lower than what we predicted. So the state of California went out and did the work for us through CAL FIRE, and was able to get quite a good bid going for breathing apparatus. Like I said, a substantial discount by Scott Manufacturing, which really what it did, it required other vendors to sharpen their pencil to be competitive. So when we started this project, I put a committee together. These two gentlemen led the committee. Bill helped them. I'll let them speak. I'll let them get up here. But the key thing I want to talk about is when we originally got the bid, we were looking at different vendors, and at first, we thought there was no way that anyone can come close to what Scott is and the state bid. We were pretty determined, we were pretty confident that we were going to look at everything, but the state bid was probably going to be the one that we would end up piggybacking. I'd be coming to you and say, hey, we want to piggyback this bid. But actually turned a different direction, so I'm going to let Bill Fuller pick it up from here.
Good evening. I want to talk a little bit about the evaluation process that we followed. Pardon me. There we go. As Chief Daly said, we formed a committee made up of Engineer Singh, Captain Gill, and also Captain Parno and myself. The committee put together a formal request for invitation, and they were using a process that Sacramento Metro Fire Department and 9 other area fire departments within that region had used on their process. Basically invited manufacturers to come in to answer questions from the committee, do a presentation of their equipment, basically tell us why we should buy their process. 6 manufacturers were invited to participate. Only 2 took advantage of it and showed up, and that was MSA Bauer and Scott Safety. At the conclusion of the evaluation, it was determined that both MSA and Scott were qualified bidders and could meet the department's delivery timeline. As the chief said, we have air cylinders that are going to run out of time. And a formal request for quotation was sent to both firms. Bids were received from both firms. The MSA Bauer was received before the bid deadline. All-Star Fire Scott was received after the bid deadline, but we decided to include both quotations in the evaluation. The bid comparisons, MSA came in at $362,351. Scott came in at $347,434. But one of the things that we found kind of interesting in the pricing is MSA offered to provide us with 5 free lithium-ion rechargeable batteries for every year for the life of the product. So 75 additional batteries that have a value of about $15,750. We did field testing. One of the things that we, as part of this request for information, each manufacturer was requested to provide us with at least 6 SCBAs for field testing by our department personnel. And members of the fire department tested each SCBA as part of shift drills and exercises. When the field testing was completed, the committee conducted a survey of the firefighters to see what their preferences were. 86% preferred the MSA SCBA. And we talked with the we call it the department's SCBA technicians, which are the 3 people on the committee who are certified to work on Scott SCBAs at the time, what their impressions were in terms of ease of repairs, the types of things that they saw that were beneficial for quickly getting things in and out of being repaired and getting them back online. And at that point, I'll turn it over to Captain Gill.
Good evening. Jaswant's going to open up the air pack and show you guys as we talk through this. But these are just in no particular order, but the features that we preferred with this air pack. Right off the bat was the remote quick connect. It allows us, right now we've got to manually thread on our packs. This just allows us to push it right on, take the bottles right off, then go into the face piece. The current packs we have now, the face masks, have a voice amp attached to the mask itself and a potential to add a thermal imaging device on the other side of it. But we figured for safety reasons, this is a preferred mask because there's nothing on it, and it's actually got a wider field of view versus what we have right now. These packs, both companies' packs are about 6 pounds heavier, considerably heavier when you pick them up, and you'll notice the weight. What this pack does is it's got an adjustable lumbar support. It not only swivels with us, but it actually goes up and down as well to sit on your spine at a certain point, so you can actually individualize a pack, making the weight a lot more tolerable. Another safety feature was on the pass device. There's a digital gauge versus just an analog gauge, which both of them have. But the digital gauge on this one's got very large numbers, and it's got a backlit screen, which other firefighters can see from far away, which is green based on the level of the air pressure you've got. So you'll know when it's time to leave the building. And not only that, but it can be actually configured to, just by push of a button on the pass device itself, you can configure it to where, based on your breathing level, how fast you're breathing, it'll tell you how many minutes of air you've got left. And finally, I think what we liked also was just an added feature was the battery. Right now we've got, in our current packs, we've got 9 volts, AA's and AAA's, and this one's just got one battery pack, rechargeable. It's just easily removed, easily inserted, and it powers everything that's on the pack. So there's no multiple swapping out of batteries at different times. It's one battery. It goes out after anywhere from 2 weeks to about a month and a half, and you'll swap it out. And then that's pretty much it there. And then we'll let Jaswant finish it off. And you gonna be able to rotate this? Oh, you got it there. Just switch that. Okay.
So my goal is to talk about dollar versus value. That's one of Jen or Gil, RSL, we live in City of Yuba City, so we we're a part of it, who contribute to the sales tax and property taxes. We're very conservative. We want to make sure that the fire department, the city of Yuba City, is getting the best deal possible for the product we're buying. I personally believe the dollar versus value, we're paying a little bit more money. However, it's the best product for the fire department that they're offering right now. I want to talk about this SCBA Vital to the fire service. As the chief stated earlier, the SCBA is a vital due to we take that SCBA in Ideology at Metzmere. And that's not only in fire. A lot of people think it's only fire. We go into hazmat, EMS call, smells in the area, trench rescue. So this pack is not only for firefighting situation. And it provides a key piece of equipment on our apparatus that provides assistance to us to provide the life safety decision we make to help the citizens of Yuba City. We looked at our current repair budget. As Chief stated, our current packs are getting old. We are spending most of our budget in repairs. It's 15-year-old. Any piece of equipment that we use it every day, it's going to need maintenance. We believe with the purchase of a new pack, these new packs have 15-year bumper-to-bumper warranty. So anything that's damaged, not by us, we damage it, obviously we're going to repair it. If the pack itself has some issues, the manufacturer will give us the parts. We in-house, General Gale and Dan Parno, will be trained to repair it. We will in-house will repair it. So I think there's a tremendous saving going with this pack. The 86% survey we did with our fire department, we actually call each individual person. Our perception, I really want to hear. Sometimes you lose some in contact when you do it over the internet survey. We actually called every person. We took every input that they provide us to make sure that this is what they want. This is a 15-year decision. We want to make sure we make the right decision as we go in the future. So most personnel obviously prefer MSA G1 over. And one of the best thing is, this was a grassroots decision. It was made by aligned personnel. We were privileged to work with Chief Daly, who gave us the privilege last year to say, hey, go ahead, search a pack that you guys prefer. So there is a vested interest by our aligned personnel that this is the pack that they prefer.
So you can see that the committee put a lot of work into this, and they worked very diligently at putting this project together and looked at it very seriously. You know what police officers, what their firearm is to a police officer is what our SCBA is to firefighters. Because for us, SCBAs, I can remember when I was online, I never even let anyone check my SCBA. I always checked my own, because I wanted to make sure that thing worked, because it has to work 100% of the time. It cannot have a failure rate. A lot of firefighter deaths that we deal with, a lot of times are attributed to either a few things, and that is either they lose air, they're low on air, or they get trapped and they didn't plan appropriately for their air use. So this has a lot of safety features, because it's always hard to come up. You always want to be able to go for the best price. And it was fairly close, as you can see. And when you include the batteries, it's actually probably a better deal in our opinion. But it can be a challenge to come in and say, hey, this one's a little bit more, but we think it has the features that are very important for firefighter safety. And the committee reviewed it in great detail, and they took the assignment very seriously, and they did a fantastic job on it. So I thank them for their efforts. So with that, I'm before you tonight to provide a recommendation. And I'll be happy to answer any questions after that. So in the best interest of the city, to go with approve the purchase of 58 SCBAs from MSA in the amount of $367,500, with the finding that's in the best interest of the city. B, authorize the finance director to complete a supplemental appropriation for account number 2310-63404 and transfer cash from Fund 620, the Vehicle Replacement Fund, in the amount of $362,351.63 to purchase self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA's, masks, air cylinders, and related charging and maintenance equipment. And then C, finally, authorize the finance director to complete a supplemental appropriation for account number 2310-6304 and transfer cash from the Fund 620 Vehicle Replacement Fund in the amount of $5,148.37 to purchase SCBA mounting equipment from Golden State Emergency Vehicle Services. And the reason we broke that out is because the smaller purchase of roughly over $5,000 will be to Golden State Apparatus to buy the mounting brackets that will secure them to the engines. So that's our presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you.
To the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, a $290,000 less cost is does make us very happy, and I know it helps your budget also. So that's fantastic. I'm not as concerned about the differences in the prices because I think the pluses on this are excellent, except for the mask, and I'd like a little more expounding on the differences of the masks and then the need to have the extra attachments or not, because I do like the fact of having a better peripheral vision there. But explain a little more in detail what the other one had the options and things on it.
Let me grab a mask.
Compared.
We can kind of compare what's going on.
Right. So our current masks have a voice amplifier. I don't know if you want to show them the voice amp on that one.
On that.
Yeah.
The mask has it on.
Our current masks have a voice amp on the mask
On the mask,
itself.
okay.
And whereas on these packs, everything is on the shoulder straps.
Okay. You didn't explain that, so I was wondering where's the voice amplifier?
I'm
So-
sorry.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
so that's, we figured those things after we weighed them about a pound, and they take their own batteries. On our current mask, we have the option of putting a thermal imaging device. Again, on these, if we went with that option, we would just replace the pass device there, and it's got a screen on there. That screen would convert into a thermal imager, and we would just hold it like this and check it out. The Scott masks, they actually will have a screen inside here, which is really neat. But then we just found that in our trials that it didn't work all the time properly for us. It Bluetoothed to the thermal imager, which was on the outside of the mask. It didn't connect a couple times. You got to turn them both on. You got to remember to turn it on from inside. And some guys were just forgetting to turn it on. And once you have this on, there's no turning it on. Versus, you've got that on the outside. You could turn it on whenever you want. But that again would add more weight. And the bigger thing is it's a safety issue in that you've got things that would get caught up on. It's just another appendage on here that could get caught up on something while you're inside. And these things, I can't remember the weight. You had a weight number that these things are supposed to be rated at to be on your face. But, if it's caught up on something, it'll slide off. It could slide off, and that's just another safety thing. For some reason, this is a smaller mask, but the way it wraps around your face, it provides a better field of view. Which, while you're walking around, that's a big thing. You'd want to be able to see more where you're stepping, easier to see. So just that's a big issue with a lot of people with that.
But there was no explanation as to the options where they were going to be. Since now I know that they're on there,
Yeah.
that is much more comforting for me to know that you're getting
In
what
our
you
trial,
need.
when we did our trial, we had a Scott mask with a tick on it, with a voice amp. Because we wanted it, I told everybody to go in open-minded. I really wanted what is
Right.
best. And then my biggest concern was, which I told them that the stuff getting caught up as the firefighters going through. There's nothing to get caught on this mask. And we didn't tell it. We let the guy made a decision. That's a big concern.
And the extra weight can be a pain in the neck, literally.
Yeah, literally, right? And
I equate this equipment also, my comment is to more like a parachute. Once you jump out of the plane, your parachute's not packed right.
Right.
You got problems. And so these things need to be the best parachute that you have for your breathing.
Yes. And, and that's what we found. Some other local departments have purchased these, and And we've called around, asked them, what issues they've had with them, and everything we've heard we were satisfied with. So.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other comments?
Through the mayor, it's those questions that I have possibly for the chief to be able to answer. Chief, take me through the bid process, how that happened. The generic term was one of the bidders didn't turn in on time. I just need to.
As I had said, we went through the evaluation process, the request for information. We sent out invitation to 6 different manufacturers. 2 agreed to come, and they showed up, did their presentation. It's kind of like a pre-bid. Let's just make sure. It's great if you have your product is really inexpensive, but you can't deliver in time, or it doesn't have all the features we're looking for. So that's why we used that request for invitation in the evaluation presentations. We sent out a request for quotation to the 2 companies. We said that we needed the bids in by December 29th. We got MSA's bid on December 28th, and we got Scott's on January 5th. Part of the issue that they had was, this is kind of a different thing. With Scott, under the state bid, we talked, hey, can we piggyback? Well, yes, you can piggyback, but you have to get written authorization from Scott themselves to do that. So we wrote a letter to All-Star, who is handling the state contract, I believe statewide here in California. They then had to send our letter with a request back to wherever Scott is, and request formal authorization from them. It was over the holidays. Scott was closed over the holidays. The bid came in, authorization back to All-Star, and the bid came back to us on January 5th. We went ahead and accepted it because the price was very good, but that was before we started the actual field exercises and training for the guys to go through. So we had one bid basically that was official. We allowed the other one to keep in there just so we had some comparisons to what was out there in the market.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay. I just want to say that I'm glad that you took all the steps to really look at the equipment. I think the safety of the employees is very important in order to take care of the community. So it's important during these bidding processes that you went through the testing phase and so forth. So that was important. Other than that, do we have a motion?
Move to approve staff's recommendation A, B, and C.
We have a second?
We'll second. Second.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Now business from City Council. So for our reports, let's start with Councilmember Buckland.
Thank you very much, Mayor. For those that watched some things today happen, things go up and things come back down. And I know many of you are thinking I'm talking about the stock market. I'm not. I will point out an amazing thing happened today. SpaceX, Elon Musk,
yes,
managed to put a car into space and hurl it towards Mars. Why is this important? Because we talk about advancing in our area. We had Mrs. Detmer up here who had a lot of contact within the space industry. But, I think with Elon Musk and his achievements, nothing is out of reach. And in case you didn't see it, they managed to use what has not been used in years, the Atlas launch pad at the Cape, and they launched a heavy vehicle into space, kind of resembled a little bit of the shuttle. Elon Musk gave it a 50-50 chance of being successful. But as successful as he is and as far-reaching as his team is, it was 100% successful. They were able to bring all three components, the two booster rockets and the main rocket, back down to their landing points, which were absolutely amazing to watch that. Catch the news at 11 o'clock tonight because it will blow you away as to what happened. But nothing is out of reach, and I think our community has that very same kind of focus on where we are going. I've attended a couple of the SACOG, the main board of directors meeting. Not much other than just routine business at SACOG was developed, except we did see some reports on our local region, and it didn't include. It was from the Brookings Institute. Did not include the two northern counties, both Yuba and Sutter County, and the jurisdictions here. We did have a meeting with all of the staff members, or a number of staff members, kind of related to that shortly after that board meeting on that day down in Sacramento, and they're going to include some of the Brookings data, and we're going to see some things from that study, more about the 6-county region. And what also spurred out of that was some sub-meetings that will be going on, and as those develop, we're looking at economic prosperity of the two counties up here and the jurisdictions, the 4 municipal jurisdictions that are also involved with the 2 counties. So I think that's great. We also, at a meeting Monday, we had our city manager also at that meeting, along with the heads of, or a number of elected representatives, one from each of the jurisdictions with the exception of Wheatland, but also staff members, and also there was Darren Gale and our city manager. So we look forward to that. We'll be bringing back more information to the mayor to make some decisions on possibly putting together part of a committee to be able to look at what the regional opportunities, the North region opportunities are for us. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next we have, actually, Councilmember Cardoza is not here. Councilmember Cleveland.
Yes, thank you. Had actually a relatively busy time last few weeks. Attended the mosquito vector meeting. Actually, it was a subcommittee ad hoc regarding solar project. They're looking at trying to reduce their costs, and in a couple of the projects actually proposed would supply 99.7% or up to 106%. So there would be some leeway for their electricity use. Attended the employee awards dinner this past Friday or Saturday. Yeah, Friday. Many employees that. Many of them go out of their way to exceed their expected customer service, and they were recognized for that. Only one group could win in each category, but there were 3. I think it was selected 3 possibilities out of each one, and each one of those selections were just phenomenal. Great people, employees. Was online or on a phone call regarding Lake Oroville spillway recovery. It's a monthly update. It's on the phone. There was good general information to keep us up to date as to what DWR is doing and the progress of the project. But there's still a lot of work to do this year. And it also, they still need to address the community economic stresses that occurred because of their inability to let's say, operate the process correctly. They've acknowledged it, and we're still pushing forward some in the community. You probably saw that on the news about how some of them are bringing lawsuits to force their hand onto doing something. That's very difficult when you're dealing with the state of California government. Attended January 25th, the swearing in of a new police dispatcher. We're finding some very high quality people that are stepping forward and joining our police force and also in our fire. It's awesome that we're having such quality people applying, and we're able to be very selective in our process. January 18th, I attended the League of California Cities Policy Committee. I'm on the Environmental Quality Committee, and there were so many items that we had to select from that we finally did narrow it down to 3. I can't remember exactly what they are right now. I should have written that down. But one of them is AB 1383, which has to do with the collection of solid waste, and actually for implementing a plan to have the residential collection of food waste be required in some form or another. So instead of just schools and larger restaurants and stuff, it's going to try to implement every resident recycling your food waste. I have a lot of problem with that since I recycle it already into my garden. Yuba Sutter Transit meeting I attended, also Regional Waste Management Authority. And yesterday, I attended the Feather River Air Quality Management District. And there's been the state of California had some according to their formulas, they were recommending some funding coming forward from different sources, and they never even followed their formula for our area. They were going to try to give us only I think it was $300 and something thousand for some efforts for air quality. And the real formula, if they had followed it, it would have been $2.5 million. So we are going back to them and saying foul and pushing hard to get them to do properly, follow their own rules for our area. And that's not an uncommon thing. We're always having to watch out for the state and their implementation because they don't even follow their own rules. And so that was basically what I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Vice Mayor Harris.
All right, real quick. Unfortunately, I missed the North State Economic Forecasting Conference up in Orville because I was sick. Apparently have I maybe gave mine stuff to Manny, but missed that. I did make it to the whiskey tasting fundraiser event for the Off the Leash Dog Park, which is, if anybody's did anybody go to that? You guys laughing at something else?
You were well enough to go to that.
I was well enough to go. It wasn't the same day.
Right?
It was not the same day.
That's
I don't think.
That's how you get cured. That's how you get cured.
Anyway, so I went to that. It was a fun time. I understand Uber put to good use that night, but it was good. SASA meeting, somewhat related to the animals. I attended that. It was basically a year-end report, and they continue to do a very good and efficient job in their facility down there. They're a good group of people. Yuba Sutter Arts, I'm on that board, and we had a board meeting, the monthly board meeting. Also, we had a board retreat on a Sunday for about half a day in a private residence. Just went over kind of strategically some plans of things to make the community more vibrant and arts-oriented and beautify the area around here. They have a few things coming up. The Faces of Interment, the photography show, a lot of musical events, and we're working on some like photography, not really a show, but something they're going to try to incorporate some photography where I enjoy photography. Councilman Pedigo over in Marysville does, and so we thought, well, I can photograph Yuba City and he can photograph Marysville. We can put it on display. But then we decided, well, why don't we just do each other's and we'll swap, and I'll try to find something good about Marysville over there. I'm sure that was something I got to choose 12 things. So I've already taken about half of my photos. It's a pretty good thing. So we're going to do that. I'm not sure how they're going to be displayed, but it should be an interesting, fun time. If anybody gets the Prospects magazine, was in the newspaper, half of the events that are on that calendar, I know I go through that calendar a lot to pick up the phone and start plugging things in every time it comes, but half of them were from Yuba Sutter Arts. at least, or I think over half of them. So they're very, Dave Reed and Abby over there, very busy, very creative. They're very good about getting and winning grants, and it's just a fun time. It's a nice, enjoyable group of people. I'm happy to be a part of it. Also attended a reception for elected officials. It wasn't really a meeting, so there's nothing really necessarily to report, but it was down at the near the state capitol in the Sutter Club, Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs group, I guess. Senator Jim Nielsen was a founder of that group, and it's a very good organization, very nice people. Their purposes, and I had not heard of it before, they go by their acronym, APAPA, but they learn about efforts to inspire, engage, and empower the public about public policy and how we foster future leaders from minority communities to serve at federal, state, and local levels in the government. So you understand minority communities, even though their name is Asian Pacific Islander, anybody and everybody can be a part of it. Scholarships or any type of empowerment projects is available. So it would be nice to see if we can get some folks from here to take advantage of those opportunities. I also attended UBC Employee Appreciation event, had the same takeaway as Councilman Cleveland did. Very enjoyable group. They put so much time and effort into the decorations alone. But, the nominees, everybody has a story, and everybody does something phenomenal every day. I have no doubt about that. But the nominees alone, they're just really great people who go above and beyond to serve our community. And it was very nice to be there and talk with those folks and be a part of showing some appreciation for them. And I attended the Rotary Crab Feed and stuff myself. So it's always a fun time, too.
That's good.
That's
That
it.
was some good crab, too. Thank you. All right. So I attended the Economic Development Commission. What I'm doing is I'm actually going out to all of the commissions to get to meet with all the commissioners and also to see where projects are and what we're doing and to help the commissioners along with our directors and leads and be a more active participant with the commission. So it was nice to be a part of that. So I'll see you again. A redevelopment oversight board meeting. The main topic there was that this oversight is going to become a regional effort. So they are working towards that, and we're looking for more information soon to come. Also attended the Employees Awards dinner, and amazing employees who behind the scenes really make this city work. And I have to say that the costumes, comedic. It was a really fun night, but thank you to all the employees who continue to do all the hard work and keep us all functioning and providing the services for our community. Attended the Rotary Crab Feed. Great attendance. Also, some of you know that we have the Summer at City Hall program here. It's in June for 3 weeks for our high school students. We are now in works with the applications and get those out there to the high schools. So please help spread the word, get our high school students involved in civic engagement, learn how their city functions, and learn about the careers and opportunities that come with it. And then we have a message from the mayor of Torrid City, which is our sister city, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it. It's a short message for the new year. On behalf of Torrid City, I would like to wish you and the citizens of Yuba City peace, health, happiness in the new year. May the year be rich in accomplishments and reward all the future aspirations with overwhelming success. My sincere thanks for the goodwill and friendship over the past years, and I look forward to the future Yuba City delegation visits. Sincerely, Shingo Fuji, Mayor of Torrid City. With that, next week, we will be leaving for Japan. We have 16 students from here that will be traveling to Japan, along with 4 adults. And then Terrell and I will be also assisting with the program this year. So we will give you more information when we get back.
So it's supposed to be cold, and I might be jet lagged because I'm getting here right before our city council the next time around. So just FYI. All right. With that, there's nothing else, and the meeting is adjourned for tonight.